What up, my freaks? Ruinous Insight here, back with my quick and dirty guide to chaos. This time we are on to the battleships, so this is going to be a pretty short episode, I guess. There are, after all, only two of them, and as I've already noted, both the Chaos battleships are swell choices for your fleet. If I could sum up these two battleships in two words, I would say they are fast and versatile. So let's begin with the Desolator. The Desolator is a big ol' lance boat. Check out those lances all over the place, fielding a rather long-range 18,000 point heavy lances and a pair of long-range missile turrets in addition to that. So in terms of firepower, it is actually almost identical to the Acheron lance boat with how many lances it can bring to bear, though of course it has 6 broadside lances, whereas the Acheron has 4 broadside lances and 2 lance turrets. It's macro turrets, which the Acheron also shares with it, however, are a little bit better due to them being 18,000 unit long range macro turrets compared to the 2 short and mid range turrets that the Acheron has. So in addition to bringing just, I'd say, slightly superior long-range firepower to the Acheron, the Desolator also boasts 8 torpedo tubes down here. Kind of hard to see them in this light, but there they are. I don't know why it highlights the entire front of the ship when the tubes are clearly down there, but whatever. Not judging game, not judging at all. Anyway, yeah. Torpedoes, for one thing, get close and personal, basically. Now, not that getting close and personal is all that likely with this battleship, unless, of course, you actively seek it out. The Desolator boasts an absolutely disgusting 200 speed. For comparison, 3/4 of all Imperial battleships move at only 120 speed, nearly half, or close enough to half that I don't care to do the math, with the exception, of course, of the Retribution, which moves a bit faster. And don't quote me on this because I was too lazy to check, but I'm pretty sure it moves at 160 speed. Regardless, still faster than a Hellfire. Anyway, the Desolator is as fast as a damn cruiser and can offer Acheron levels of lance boating. It is also dirt cheap, running at only 265 points. For a battleship tonnage, the Desolator has massively improved survivability compared to the Acheron. That's 3 times as much critical resist as the Acheron, twice as much shielding with 800 over 400, and 1/3 again times as much hull. Plus, considerably better boarding and troop values. Well, you know, standard battleship stuff. Once again, I just want to stress that 265 points for a battleship is pretty damn decent. The Desolator is cheaper than the lackluster Imperial Lance battleship, the Apocalypse, which hilariously only moves at 120 speed and can't kite worth a damn. So when would you pick a Desolator and when would you pick an Acheron? Well, if you are confident you can kite the enemy, especially if it is the AI, to the point that you will never take any significant damage, you're paying a premium for battleship toughness that you may not really need. So in that case, you're probably better off using those points to bring more Acherons or support ships with all those extra points. Because the Acheron has 2 lance turrets, it can also be a little bit better at kiting when running away and moving forward to engage. However, don't be afraid to mix and match. Depending on what kind of upgrades you're running, you could grab a Desolator to be a singular main tank for an all-lance fleet, or even an all-Desolator fleet to make use of nice battleship toughness and boarding capability. Both the Tzeentch and the Khorne flavors go very nicely with boarding capabilities as they do buff them up, so do make sure to make use of those. If nothing else, you can outright use this thing as a big old damage sponge for a pretty decent cost. Now, one of the downsides of the Desolator is that you may not actually get a lot of mileage out of those torpedo tubes if you never actually manage to get in close. As noted before, a weapon you're not using in a fleet is fleet point efficiency lost. That said, those same torpedoes do offer tactical flexibility and a pretty damn nasty front-facing alpha strike with those 8 torpedoes that the Acheron does not possess. So I can't really call it a downside in truth, more of a balanced pro-con type deal. Another possible issue with this ship is that, like all battleships, the Desolator cannot perform high energy turns. So while it is certainly fast going in a straight line, or a slightly curved line, I suppose, when burning all ahead full, it will take considerably more effort to reorient than a smaller ship. Well, that said, though, speaking of going in a straight line fast, the Desolator actually makes for a pretty damn good ramming ship, as I've learned while playing the Chaos campaign. Brace it for impact and use that speed to wipe away escorts, light cruisers, and even cruisers like bugs on your windshield. All in all, the Desolator is a great, versatile ship and can make a mean addition to your Chaos fleet. Now on to the Despoiler, the poor cousin of the Terminus Est and a very iconic Chaos battleship. It is a little bit slower than the Desolator at 120 speed, i.e. the same as a Grand Cruiser except for the slow damn Hellfire, but it is still faster than even the fastest Imperial battleship. Like the Hecate, the Despoiler is a sort of jack of all trades, which you can probably tell just by looking at this variable weapon loadout. Unlike the Hecate, however, which is a jack of all trades, master of none, the Despoiler is more like a jack of all trades, master of all. It's got the launch base to maintain ordnance superiority, it's got the lance turrets, or long-range lance turrets I should say, for kiting and outputting consistent DPS, and it's got long-range heavy macros for engaging at any distance and brawling up close, though these are, I will admit, the rapid-firing, lower damage macros. Hell, it's even got a big ol' lance artillery on the front for closing the distance. Now, being a master of all, of course, does come with a heavy price tag. This thing is pretty damn expensive at 326 fleet points, so you best know exactly what you're getting into if you're going to invest said points. Now, you are probably unlikely to lose out on DPS efficiency with this thing. It is, after all, only 50 points more expensive than a Styx, but in terms of damage output with its weapons other than its hangar bays, if it can catch a Styx, it can outshoot it to a pretty hilarious degree. The big problem, of course, is spending all of these fleet points in one place. It's that whole all eggs in one basket, all terrors in one eye kind of deal. If this thing gets caught out, if its engines suffer a lucky crit or its subsystems get crippled, it gets stuck in a stasis bomb or pounded by Nova cannons, blah blah blah, so on and so forth, that is a huge chunk of your fleet investment down the drain. Oftentimes, many smaller ships can actually be far more efficient due to it being more difficult to focus all firepower and get rid of a single threat. In that light, one of the major downsides of the Despoiler, alongside the already mentioned cost, is that despite battleship crit resistance, it does seem to suffer disproportionately high crits to its frontal weapons. The heavy launch bay and the lance artillery, the things in this front, I don't know, Tyne type area. Anyway, yeah, it does seem to suffer disproportionately high amounts of crits there. They are pretty big targets, I guess. That's probably why it happens. I don't know. This is obviously an issue, as the second you lose a launch bay, or two launch bays, I suppose you'd say, in the case of the heavy bay, that's pretty crippling for a combat carrier. Now, I have also talked about how lance artilleries can be a liability at times because of the whole you have to jig back and forth and they can't fire in the same direction as your broadside weapons. But I'm gonna backtrack a little bit on that with the Despoiler. You have to note that this is a quad-barrel, super heavy lance artillery, which is actually pretty nasty. It can output something like 2.5 times the raw DPS of the artillery on the Hades battlecruiser. Plus, it can fire in concert with the 3 lance turrets on top of the Despoiler, so there's a pretty damn decent frontal firing arc in combination with the 360-degree arc offered by the ordnance launch. So I guess that's all I really need to say about the Despoiler. It's a really powerful, very expensive ship that is pretty damn amazing in the campaign, but a little bit more of a risky play in the multiplayer due to the whole egg basket thing. Regardless, it's a fantastic battleship to round out the roster and a welcome addition to any Chaos fleet looking for a ride for its big bad. So next up on this guide, I'm not really sure yet, I may take a look at the 4 Chaos Titans just for fun, as there is a decent amount of stuff to dissect there before moving on to skills, favors, or flavors, whatever, and tactics. Guess we'll find out, so stay tuned for that. Don't forget to support your friendly neighborhood heretic with a like and a comment, and thanks for watching.